Hey guys, Tarke here, and I wanted to talk through some of the new skills that have been teased. In this video, I'm going to talk about the new wand things. I'm also going to be talking about the new mana abilities that have recently been announced. Starting off with the wand abilities. They seem very interesting. People are very hyped for them. For whatever reason, this is just my own personal taste. I'm more interested in the new mana abilities, but let's start off getting into this. So, Kinetic Bowl is, or as I like to call it, Zigzaggy Wands, is a new level 1 wand ability, and spell damage applies to it 150% of its value. That's the main thing which is really cool about it, having a cool wand attack to level with from level 1. And as you can see from the video, it has some pretty interesting mechanics with Fork, and how it scales with multiple projectiles. Apparently, stacking a bunch of extra proj and forks will be a boost to single target. We'll just have to play with it and see how it feels compared to something like Power Siphon. Since Power Siphon Barrage is particularly spicy single target, this is meant to be pretty decent. I would give a slight word of warning when it comes to leveling with this off the bat. While having the extra scaling of spell damage 150% applying to attacks, still, I'm not sure how good it will be as a league start. This will be a very popular build. I can almost 100% guarantee someone like Mather will have a starter guide for it if you do want to play it. But I would say second build. Like, I wouldn't league start it personally. We are also seeing in the background something called Spellslinger. Spellslinger is... It's interesting. It's either going to be stupidly broken or very underwhelming, because people have gotten incredibly hyped to Spellslinger. People are very psyched to Spellslinger. As you can see from the footage, you basically get a Poet's Pen style effect. So it acts like a support gem, and you link Spellslinger to a spell. It then reserves a mana cost, which I'm expertly blocking. You can see here, it reserves a mana cost. And then there's a 0.5 second cooldown that when you attack with a wand ability, it triggers the effect. So, the thing which is kind of cool about it is because it has a set cooldown, you don't have to scale attack speed for it. You just need to have enough attack speed to like match up with your cooldown of 0.5. Obviously, if you were stacking like cooldown reduction, then you have to change it a little bit. So it seems cool. I'm sure there'll be lots of very interesting builds that come out of this. For whatever reason, I'm like the only person who isn't super excited about it. I think it's just because a lot of the builds I like playing when it comes to like self-cast are like the more traditional kind of like Contagion, Essence Drain, the 1-2 gameplay. And I'd rather not be attacking. If you were to attack with it, things you could do which would be pretty cool is you could use like a Frenzy Curse on hit. So you just do Frenzy Curse on hit, that way you're generating Frenzy Charges, and you're also applying curses. Meanwhile, you're teleporting around like mad. One thing to keep in mind, though, is you will be reserving a lot of mana using this. So if you're reserving loads of mana, you're not really going to be getting the most use out of some of the new mana gems that are being introduced. One thing which is particularly nice, though, is they're introducing, or not introducing, but they're reworking an old passive called Wand Slinger, which now gives increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attacks while wielding a wand. So they're really trying to push this archetype that if you are a wand build, you are scaling spell damage. One thing which is also quite nice about it is it's very cheap. So if you want to play a wand build that doesn't go into this part of the skill tree, you can easily anoint this node. So even if you want to just stick to Power Siphon or Kinetic Blast, you can still benefit from this spell damage scaling. And apparently they're going to rework Crown of Eyes, so it has a higher ratio, and it will affect other weapon types. So it's pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool. I'm a fan of Wand Slinger in particular, but I'm not like crazy hyped to these. The mana ones, though, I think are pretty chill. These I think are pretty cool. So Arcane Cloak is a brand new guard skill. The initial reactions, at least from my Twitch chat, didn't seem that like hype for it. I think it's going to be very strong, though. It's one of those guard skills which is going to scale with investment, which is interesting because currently the only guard skill that scales with investment is Vol Molten Shell. And I don't know if you ever use Vol Molten Shell, but Vol Molten Shell is pretty good with investment. So the way that Arcane Cloak works, it uses a percentage of your unreserved mana From the video gameplay we saw, it looks like about 2/3 of your mana. And grants an absorb determined by the mana spent that absorbs 75% of all damage from hits before it affects life or energy shield. This means that you can have a mind over matter style effect, which will apply to CI builds. So if you're like, I don't get it, like, why not just play Mom, or isn't this bad? The fact that you can use this to scale, like, CI builds is really nice, because if you're a CI build, you don't have a lot of int, so you have a lot of mana, and you didn't really have much to do with it because you couldn't scale Mom. If we just go back to the start of this video and we play this in slow-mo, you can see how he reserves like 2/3 of his mana, and he gets a, I think it was like a 1.7 or like a 1.3k absorb. I'm pretty sure that this gear isn't the same as the next clip you see with 7,000 mana. So they hid the values, which is a bit cheeky. But you can see he reserves about 2/3, and he gets like a 1.3k absorb. And again, his life doesn't move at all. Mana regen is very strong, and I'll talk about some ways to scale mana regen. I think this will be great. I think it's going to be really good for Mind Over Matter builds. And the thing which is nice about it is a lot of people have been playing Mind Over Matter, and they haven't really been investing into their mana. They just get like the bare minimum, like, oh, we're just getting the essential like 2k mana, and we'll have an enduring mana flask, and that's that. The thing which I like about Arcane Cloak is it promotes you actually investing into your mana. And not only are you getting this very powerful absorb shield, it also gives you lightning damage. So you're scaling your defense and your damage at the same time, which is just very nice, efficient synergy. And obviously it has great synergy with an item like Indigon. So you can see where the synergies are there. Now, next up we have Archmage, which as you can see here, Archmage makes your spells cost a massive chunk of mana, and they gain bonus damage for it, proportional to the extra mana cost. This is no Archmage. Then playing it with Archmage, it goes chunk, 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 chunk. I think this will be very strong, obviously, for Indigon builds. But I think this will be also very powerful for abilities that don't regularly cast spells. So, for example, something like Stormbrand, if you're playing just like a Stormbrand Mind Over Matter build, investing into mana will scale your Mind Over Matter, it will scale your Arcane Cloak, but it doesn't matter if you press Stormbrand and you instantly go because you don't really spam Stormbrand. You're mostly using Recall for your for refreshing your brands. So if you just empty your mana pool once, but then you'd have to cast again for the 5, 6, 10, however many seconds, then it seems pretty cool. I could see it having some very strong niche uses outside of just the get Indigon forehead. And now we have Stormbind. Stormbind looks a bit fucky to me. It looks a little bit fucky. So Stormbind is interesting in the fact that it gives you an additional ability. I think it's the only ability that gives you another ability. From the wording of it, it doesn't seem like it's two separate gems. It seems like you get one and then you get another. It's a bit weird how they worded it. Stormbind is a level 28 channeling spell that works in a fashion that's similar to Mine's, with a channeling component. The initial channeling aspect of Stormbind lays a grid of runes that hinders enemies. As a second area of offense, Stormbind also grants the Rune Blast ability. So I'm pretty sure it's the first ever ability that gives you 2 abilities. I guess you could technically say that Mines give you the Detonate Mines button, but that isn't really an ability, right? A channeling spell that upgrades the area of effect and damage of Stormbind's runes, right? So you channel to lay the runes, and that's Stormbind. And then Rune Blast is another channel where you're putting mana into the runes, and they gain AoE and damage. So you can see here, and this is using a cast or channeling setup, so they're linked in the same weapon. It's a lot of things. Oh, and also it teleports you. So when you detonate, or when you press the Rune Blast, they'll release it. You teleport. It's an ability that's trying to do a bit too much, in my opinion. It might turn out to be a really powerful skill, but it's definitely a bit convoluted. It's like it's 2 abilities in one. One of them's a movement skill. It's interesting. I think some people are definitely gonna have fun with it. The main issue that it might have is how will it compete to similar playstyles like Divine Ire or Stormburst? And because you need... The fact that it's a forced teleport, I think I'd prefer it without the teleport. Because there's sometimes you're just gonna put your character into a poor position. That being said, the initial channeling skills, when we started getting them, looked bad to me. Like, when we first saw Divine Ire, it looked kind of rough. A big one for me was when the first thing we saw of Scourge Arrow. The initial Scourge Arrow we saw looked really wanky. I was like, why would you play this? It looks so slow. So you also need to keep in mind there's a very big difference between a proper endgame build and them using just a demonstration. Because I spoke to the guy who makes these videos in XRCon, who spoke about it's one of the main challenges they have, is they need to make trailers that accurately depict how the gameplay functions. They're not necessarily trying to make good builds. So yeah, this whole Stormbind Rune Blast thing might actually be really good, but the main thing that I'm interested in is Arcane Cloak. I'm always a big fan of new defensive scalings. Arcane Cloak seems very interesting to me, and I'm definitely interested from the point of view of gaining new layers on Energy Shield based build that previously couldn't use Mind of Matter, but yes. I'm Tarke. Please let me know why I'm sleeping on Spellslinger. Again, I think it's going to be good. It just doesn't have me excited for whatever reason. What cool Spellslinger setups are you going to have? And I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.